Hello and good evening, students. This lesson is an extra lesson for you all, and I am uploading it to the college YouTube channel for the benefit of everybody. Um, the this I tried to or I have decided to put it up as an extra class or an extra lesson because this particular lesson will be directly connected to the assignment which I am going to teach you, that is Gramsci's The Formation of the Intellectuals, and it deals with this particular lesson will be dealing with the elite theory and the concept of the political elite. So why am I suddenly giving you this lesson? There are several answers. First is because, as I mentioned, that it is in direct connection to the assignment in concern. It will aid in your. It will help you better understand the concepts that Gramsci presents. There are several of them. There are several ideas and several concepts that Gramsci introduces, Gramsci exposes, and Gramsci elaborates, explains in this particular essay, one of which is the theory of the elites or the political class, which he mentions in the very beginning of his essay. So whenever I would have taught you this essay, that is after another class that would be on Marxism, I would definitely have given you an elaborated lesson on the theory of the elites, or what he means by political class. But since I am doing this extra lesson today, I will be explaining this concept or this idea of the elite or the political class in this particular lesson. This is actually an answer to a query that was raised by one of you, one of your friends, one of your fellow students, and I thought that this was an important question, and I thought that it was necessary for all of you all to see this lesson and participate in it. Of course, if you have any further questions, I will be more than happy to entertain you all, and you are welcome to ask me any queries that you might have, or any questions that you might face, or any difficulty, confusion that you might face at the end of this lesson. So kindly, everybody, irrespective of anyone who has particularly asked me this question, I request you that you must go through this lesson, because it is in direct connection to the assignment with which we will be doing together, that is Gramsci's essay, The Formation of the Intellectuals. So this is an important extra lesson that I am giving you, and I hope that every one of you all will be joining in or watching it. This lesson will be serving another very important function. Since I am not going to give you an elaborate lesson or on Marxism, my assignment with you is not Marxism particularly, but only one propagator or only one tiny component of Marxism, or of all those people who claim to be Marxists, of all those people whom we categorize as Marxists. There are so many kinds, there are so many types, one of whom is Gramsci, one of the type which is the cultural hegemonic type. This is another concept which he introduces in his essay. So since I will be my assignment with you all is of Gramsci's Marxism, and not of the fundamental or essential Marxist theory that Marx and Engels themselves had elaborated upon, written upon. So I would not have given you any elaborate lesson on the idea of class struggle, which is one of the fundamental instruments of Marxism. So this lesson on elite theory and the political class will also serve this purpose. That is, it will give you an idea, it will give you a very good idea of the Marxist concept of class struggle, which is what? Now this is class struggle very simplified form. Obviously you have to understand it is not as simple as you can see. It cannot be completed within a single slide of a single PowerPoint presentation. However, very simply put, this is what class struggle is, and I will explain. So if the lever that you see in front of you, if you can see my mouse pointer, this is the lever, this is the fulcrum, this is the society, or this is the world, if we can say. So in the world there are two components. Remember that we are thinking from the perspective of a Marxist, from a perspective of a communist, putting it more generally. So the world has two components. There is money and there is power. So money is owned by the owners of production, or in the Marxist terminology, the capitalist. The power, I would not say power is owned, but the power is represented. Money, obviously, money is also one of the forms of power, but if we are to divide the two, then power forms one component and money the other. So if money is one component, which is obviously inclusive within power, but here we are considering it separately. Then power is represented in this world or in the society as labor, as the working class or the proletariat in Marxist terminology. I am calling it power because this is also this is one of the fundamental basic or possessions to be had in order to produce more money and in order to produce more power. So if I have manpower with me, we use this term manpower. Though this manpower is nothing but the labor force of the laborers. I am saying labor and not laborer. The man who works in a factory is not power, but what he produces, what he has to offer as a service, that is his technical knowledge in practice, that is labor, which is considered to be a power to be possessed, a power to be owned in the Marxist cycle, in the Marxist terminology. A power to be owned by whom? The owners of production, who also have money. So now you must understand that the labor, which is the laborer whose power is his labor or his work output, does not have money. So money is owned by the capitalists, who also own the power of labor, because he is the one who is paying salary, who is giving you jobs. So when the capitalist has both of these, that is money and power, he grows his business, and thereby you can see that this fulcrum or this lever is absolutely tilted to one side, to the side of the capitalist, because they have both of the things. They have both the power and the money. With the money they have bought the labor forces, they are paying the working class, they are giving them wages, and they are the owners of this power as well as money. So they make their business, they grow their business flourishes, and they have surplus, they have profits, years after years, decades after decades after decades. And what is remained with the proletariat or the working class is exploitation. Because you, in a business economy, in a business, what happens is that you can earn profit only if the amount of money that you earn from your business, from the buying and selling of whatever product and service you are selling, the money that you earn from this business should exceed the money that you spend in the business. So if I am spending rupees 1, just for example, rupee 1 on machinery, rupee 1 in the factory house, that is the house in which, or the room, or the the garage, or whatever it is, the space wherein I am to do my business, I am spending rupee 1 on machinery, I am spending rupee 1 on business, and I am spending rupee 1 or rupees 2 as wages to the labor. So I am spending rupees 4 on my business. That is what I am expending or putting into my business. Now what I am getting out of it is rupees 10. So that 6 rupees, that 10 minus 4, that 6 rupees is my profit. So if I am paying, now you see those three components which I am expending, or which I am using as expenses, or saying as expenses is my business. What do they include? Machinery. Now they are fixed. I do not have to spend on my machinery every year. or every month. I do not have to spend on the space in the space or the rented place in which I am doing my business every year. They are my fixed assets. In commercial terms, they are known as fixed assets. What is the variable asset over here that varies from time to time, from place to place, is the labor, the manpower. Now, as long as I do not increase my expenses, that is, the 4 rupees on one hand should always be 4 rupees, so that my profit can always increase. So, on these fixed assets, I am not going to pay any more because they are fixed. Machines do not require maintenance so often. Spaces do not increase their rent so often. But the variable force, that is human beings, the human resource which we call in new modern or corporate terms, that is variable. According to economic forces, to social forces, they might ask for more wages, they might ask for more insurance covers, for more benefits, for more perks, for increased salaries, whatever and whatnots. If I increase them according to the whims and wishes of the manpower, I as a businessman, my expenses will increase and my profits will consequentially, as a result, decrease. Now, I do not want that. So, I will continue to exploit my labor force, continue to pay them with less and less wages, so that my profits increase and increase. In West Bengal, we have the best example to prove this, which was the Naxalite movement or the Naxalbari Andolon, which happened or which propagated or which exploded as a result of very unduly wages or unequal or minimal wages that were paid to the tea planters or the tea plantation workers during the time post independence. That was also a communist uprising in Bengal. If you must all know, have a vague idea about this, you can just do a Wikipedia search and you will see that this is exactly what happened during the Naxalite movement. So that is class struggle. This is one of the fundamental concepts of Marx: class struggle or class conflict, the struggle between two classes, the classes of the capitalists and the classes of the proletariat. So Gramsci does not discuss about this very exponentially in his essay, because he was not interested in explaining the Marxist theory. He was more interested in formulating his own theory, his own form of Marxism, that is the cultural hegemonic Marxism. So this particular lesson upon the elite theory will be giving you a very nice idea, a very good idea of this class struggle, which is also important in understanding, in order to understand Gramsci's concept of the intellectuals, which is of course our main focus area. So let us just begin with it. So the question that was asked by one of you was directly related to one of the slides that I had presented in my earlier class, and I remember mentioning that this slide is particularly important because it is in direct connection to the assignment that we would be doing together. And that slide was something I think it was mentioned that the international elites equals the aristocracy or the opposite, and below that it was written that the middle class equals Englishness. So I was asked what this meant. So I understand what you wanted to know particularly was the meaning of international elites or aristocracy. So who are the international elites and the middle class? First of all, let's just establish the boundary between them, and we will see. I'll just take a moment over here. Okay, let's continue. So as this is just a revision of what I was teaching in the last class, it is that the middle class, they were detached from the church. As I said, that they were the relationship with the clergy was very patchy. So they were very detached from the church, which was also, you must remember, the institution which was primarily responsible for all the socio-economic and political activities of the society at that point of time, roughly until the 19th century, the 1800s. Up till the 1800s, the church controlled the society, the church controlled the politics, the church controlled the economy of the age. And the middle class, as a class of people or as a group of people, they were very much detached from the church. And nationalism was a sentiment. This is just a revision again. I have already mentioned it in my previous class. It is in connection to that. And nationalism as a sentiment was to be aroused among the middle class. That is what F.D. Morris, the professor of English in England in King's College, was saying, that nationalism was the sentiment that was to be aroused among the middle class. Why? To inspire unity. Since the middle class was detached from the church and church was the institutional power of the nation at that point of time, if you are detached from the power at that point of time, then what does that mean? It means that you are prone to making or creating rebellions, that you are prone to being rebellious or bringing about revolution. So in order to suppress that potential revolution that could build up and be built up by the middle class, nationalism was a sentiment that F.D. Morris thought, and not only that he thought, but it was the overarching idea of that point of time, that the middle class needed to be brought into this nationalistic sphere, and in order to unite them, and in order to unite them with one basic idea that unites everyone, and that is nationalism. Because if you are loving your country, it does not basically build up upon your faith in any particular religion, in any particular class, or whatever categories there exist in reality. Nationalism, patriotism, it is always presented from a united front. It always has to be unanimous. The word itself calls for unity. So in order to inspire homogeneous unity, that is unity without any diversity, nationalism was the sentiment that was to be aroused. And among the middle class, why? Because they were detached from the political, economic, or the social sphere. It is precisely because of the vicious cycle that still exists, that whoever is in power, it exploits the class that is below it, the middle class, the lower classes. So that was how the cycle was. And this sentiment of nationalism, how can it flourish? It can flourish and be used as a propaganda if it is shared by the many. If it is only the few, the ruling class, they are always the few, right? Those who rule us, they are always the few. We are the many. The people who govern us, they are only a few. The British, they were 1 lakh. Indians, we were 1 crore. That is always the case, and it is still now. Those who are governing us, the political class, which you will be learning about in a few seconds, the political class, they are the few. Do their number exceed than the masses? No. They are very less in number than the masses. We are the many, the common people, we are the many. So it is only amongst us that this sentiment must be flourished and used as a propaganda, because this sentiment is the unifying sentiment that will unify everybody under one umbrella. The one objective, this is the one objective that all kinds of power has. All kinds of power, be it patriarchy, be it capitalism, be it fascism, be it communism, it always wants homogeneity, that people be united under a single umbrella. So for this, for the democratic age that we had, nationalism is that umbrella under which everyone has to be united. And this middle class was opposed to the aristocracy. And since there was this opposition, this nationalism, this flourishing of nationalism and this propagation of this sentiment of nationalism, it would have bridged the gap. That is, the class struggle or the conflict between these two classes would decrease. But we must ask ourselves the question that why was there a gap in the first place? What is the reason that there is a gap in the first place? So this is the question that we must first ask ourselves, that why did there exist a gap in the first place? So for that we need to understand what a political class and elite is. We understand what the middle class is. Now we must understand what this political class and the elite comprises of. Who are the elites? They are recognized outstanding leaders in a given field. Now, they are small minorities. They have an influential role to play in the society. They are the decision makers. And they are not controlled by any other groups in the society. They control. They are those who make major decisions which have major consequences. They are a dominant group, distinct and exclusive. And most importantly, they are a collective of persons. That is, they are a group of people. They are a collective of persons. It is not one single individual. It is not one single group either. You have to understand there are several fields and there are several groups. And there are groups of these groups. So there are groups, subgroups, subgroups. It's like a pyramid. The power concentrates as the pyramid goes up to the top, towards the corner. So it is the elite and the political class. They are a collective of persons. And it is this collectivity which has certain attributes. It is this collectivity which has certain skills, and this skill and these attributes, they not only give this class of political elites a certain superiority, but it also gives them the power of decision making and influencing others. That is how they stand out. That is how they are different from any other group. They have the power of making decisions that have consequences, and they have the power of influencing others. This elite is also a relative term, that is, it is a comparative term. A group is identified as an elite in a particular field in which it is the power exerciser. So, as in the last slide you saw, that if there is the group of political, there is a group of religious, there are religious elites, there are political elites. So in the field of politics, in the field of religion, in the field of science, those people, those few number of people who exercise power, who hold the power, who commands, the person who orders. So in politics, in the field of politics, it would be our prime minister. In the field of religion, now that is a shaky ground. There are several, and in the field of science, there will be those, like Elon Musk. He's a corporational scientist. He's popular. He belongs to that class of elite. He's a decision maker. He is an influencer. He influences not only his scientific field, but also economic field, but also the economic field, but also the social field. So he is a true and organic elite of the society of today's contemporary world. And this group, it has an excellence over all the other groups. In this sense, it can be said that it is a group of high stratum decision makers in political culture or concrete political structure which monopolizes political power and influences major political policies and occupies all important posts of political command. And we will be seeing examples of this. But who are these people then? If I give an example, who are these people? They are the elected nominated central and state legislators, those whom we elect to the state or national level legislatures, those who occupy very important positions in national level politics or state level politics. We can very well understand now who this class of elite can comprise of. They are individuals who do not hold any formal positions. They can be individuals who do not hold any formal positions in the government or in the political parties, but are still considered as persons of great political prestige and power because they control power exercises. So if you go back to pre-independence or the independence era, even though Mahatma Gandhi did not hold any position in the party of Congress, he did not have a designation in that party, but yet he was an influencer, he was a commander, he was a power exerciser. So he is a perfect example of this elite class who does not belong to any political party per se, to any state legislature, to any national legislature per se. So an elite class can be inclusive of people, those who are both at national or state level political fields, or those who do not belong to a political party or do not have a designation in a political party, yet they are power exercisers or commanders of that social group, and hence they have been called by various names. They have been called the power elite by J. Wright Mills. They have been called by the governing elite by Pareto. Pareto is one person who was one of the primary maker of the concept of political elite. They have been called by the veto group by Reisman. They have been called the top leaders by Floyd Hunter, and they have also been called by this phrase which is most commonly used and which we will also be using to describe this group of people, the political elite or the elite. They have been called the ruling class by Karl Marx. So in Marxist terminology, the political elites are none but the ruling class. Now let us come to our own country. Since this lesson is a bit sort of a deviation from the assignment that we have, but we need to have clear concepts about this elite or about the Marxist idea, and slowly come to the Gramscian idea of intellectuals. We must locate the existence of this elite in India. This will give us a very clear and better understanding, of course. So let's see. Okay. So in India, there were 5 phases after independence. The first phase being the phase or the time just after India received its independence. That is, you can see early 1950s or late 1940s, if you can say. So in this phase, the elites were unprofessional politicians. For example, very clear that is the in which the political elite, they worked for economic upliftment of the country, they worked for social development, they were nationalists, they were liberals, they were reformists, they were highly educated, mostly belonged to upper castes. You can see the caste system was prominent at the point of time. They were committed to the interest of the society. They were committed to the interests of the society. They were obviously, as I said, nationalists, liberals, and they were reformists of the religion, of the religious sphere, of the cultural sphere of the country. They were the first generation power wielders of India, and they earned their reputation for their courage, for their vision, and for their action. And they earned it more through their functioning in the office. Now, this is the first phase considering which was just post-independence, April 1952, the elections of April 1952 to 1971. They were non-Congress. They did not belong to the party of Congress as we know it, the oldest political party in India. They did not belong, or they did not hold office in political parties. Now the second phase we can say that it was the consolidation phase. And they were the new elites. This new elite, they appeared around 1960s, and they represented the working class, the intermediate and the lower castes, the middle class professionals, the small farmers, the industry workers, even some certain religious groups, social groups, to name a few. And they were seeking entry. They wanted to enter into the political decision making process. And though these elite, this section or this part of the elite group, they wanted to a greater role in policy formulation. The older elites, that is the transition between the first phase and the second phase, there are always the older elites and the newer elites, because you have to understand that times are changing, and according to time the kind of elites are changing, as the kind of common people are also changing. We are also changing. We are also adapting to the contemporaneous nature of time, to the changing nature of time. So even though these elites, they wanted to enter into the political decision making process, the older elites still had their influence. There was thus toleration. There was toleration on the part of both the new and the older elites. They accommodated each other. They tried to fit their ideas according to each other. And this type of interaction that the old and the new elites had in India, it had a certain effect. It had a certain positive effect. The positive effect was that there was no concentration of power. Power did not go and fix itself among or with or in the hands of a chosen few, chosen by themselves by terms of their money, by terms of their influence. Since there was a dilution of power because of this interaction that existed between the old and the new elites. They accommodated each other, they tolerated each other, they worked with each other. So at this phase, the second phase, 1960s, there was a dilution of power. We can thus say that change in the elite structure up to this phase, it did not consist of any class struggle or conflict according to the strict Marxist terminology. There was no conflict because these two sections of elites, they worked with each other. The third phase, there emerged the elite amongst whom many were found to have politics as their major source of livelihood. They were the political elites. They believed in the ties of kinship, caste and language. They were blind. They did not believe that the plans of economic reforms, you see, India has 5-year plans that are brought out in every subsequent budgets, or not in every other, but every 5 years they are revisited, they are amended, they are changed, they are adopted in different ways. And so this class of political elite, they were blind to the plans being brought into action, and they believed in seeking cooperation of the masses by coining very attractive slogans. They were the democrats. Democracy was a way of life for them. They were democrats. They posed as democrats, because democracy was not a way of life for them. They were just acting as democrats, but they were vested very, very partially. They were very much vested selfishly in their own interests. They just wanted to increase their own power. And since this new elite, they were functioning within the same party. You see, the first and the second and the third phase, they all culminated into the political party of Congress in India. Specifically, we are talking about India, in the country of India. So up to the third phase, there was an intermingling of the elites. And since these elites with very different ideologies, with different ideas, with different concepts of governance, as far as I just said, up to the third phase, they existed within the party. The variation within the party led to division within the party. And this division affected both the party and the functioning of the elites. And then came the fourth phase, which was the new political elite who were brought into power in 1989 and then in 98. They got public votes not because of their liberal nature or reasonable or logical nature, because of their radicalism, because of their fights, of their slogans, because of their rebellions, but greatly appreciated because people wanted to throw out the government of that day, that is of the 1980s, which was the government which was dominated by single political party for about 4 decades, for 40 years. And the people wanted to change the government. So the fourth phase was the change that was brought into the political system of India. And the last decade, that is the fifth phase, which was characterized not only by a plurality, by a variety of structural background, but they were also different in their ideas of government, in their concepts of governing. They were varied in their ideas and concepts. They were guided by their loyalty to the political party, to the ideas of the political party. And they were the true intellectuals. Now herein we come to the connection with the assignment with Gramsci, the very mention of the word, the intellectuals. So these intellectuals, they were those who were very independent in their way of life. They were in their own right intellectuals, and whereas the present day elite are incapable of exercising independent political powers, the fifth phase saw the growth of this class of intellectuals who were guided by their particular loyalty to the political party, their loyalty to the social social reformation, rather than by controlling the masses in order to get re-elected. And how do this now? These are the different kinds of elites, the different types of elites, and as you can understand, or if you have understood what I have said up till now, you will be able to make it clear that these different types, they are not but extensively separated from each other. They overlap. One kind gives birth to the new kind because of its own incompetency, because of its own lack in certain areas. So it is overlapping. It is not separated by a wall. It is not exclusive. The types of elites, they are not exclusive in their own nature. However, they are different in certain aspects. They are different in their ideas, and therefore certain groups have been liked by people, by the common people, by the masses, and certain have been overthrown. And how do these political elite, this class, how do they proliferate? That is, how do they grow in their stature? How do they increase? With time, as population increased, how has this class protected itself? How has this class circulated itself? How has it grown in size? How has it grown in power? by struggle, by conflict, by revolutions. There have been revolutions, there have been rebellions in various countries, in various places around the world. Or by manipulation, nationalism being a form, of course, or by compromise and tolerance. In India, the governing elite at a higher political culture, the class of people whom we are calling the governing elite, the elite who belong to political parties, to political those who have positions in the political parties, those who are decision makers, policy makers. In India, that class, they are not recruited. It is not that they belong to the non-governing elite, but they are recruited from governing elite functioning at a lower political class. So it is like a pyramid again, it is a hierarchy. So the political elite or the elite group of people working at district levels, at block levels, they move up to the higher class of state political parties. They never go back to the block level, they do not go back to the state level. But it is not that they have lost an interest in their older group. So if I belong to the social group of elite in the district level or at the political level, and I move up to the class of state level politics, or if I become a state level political elite, it is not that my interests have gone away from the lower class. I will continue to influence that lower class and continue to bring other elites into my group, up to my group, that is at the state level. That is how I maintain my kinship, like-mindedness of people whom I think would be beneficial to me, people whom I think are fit for my elite group. And then this state level elite group of political parties, they move up to higher or governing or those policy makers of the high elite social group of the country. So there is an upward movement of the elite. The Marxian approach, which is non-elitist, Marxian approach does not believe in elitism, it believes in struggle, it believes in conflict. It views relations between the elite, which is the privileged class which commands power and wealth, which has power and wealth, and the non-elite, which is the working class, which does not have power, which does not have money. And it is based on conflict. That is Marxism. Marxism does not have any class of elite, but the process of overthrowing the elite in power and succeeding them is not always based on conflict. It is based on manipulation, it is based on toleration, it is based on accommodation, compromise and bargain also. So two classes, the elite class tolerating the classes lower to them, compromising or coming to an adjustment with the classes lower to them, or they manipulate. The international elites of England manipulated the working class of England by using the sentiment of nationalism in order to remain in power, which can only be maintained if the class over which they are ruling is united, is not breaking away completely. It must come under their own umbrella, one shared sentiment of nationalism. So this is how the international elites and the middle class are connected to each other contextually based on my last class, or in England as F.D. Maurice was putting it. And this nationalism was to be propagated by nothing but the language of English and the literature that was produced thereof. Now, what is the role of this class? If we have understood the who the political elites are, they must have a function. They cannot just exist without any function. So what is the role? In the economic field, our goals, how do we say that the economy is flourishing or the economy is benefiting? If we have advanced technology, if we have abundant production, if there is good trade, there is no monopoly, the government welcomes competition, you are free to choose any occupation you like, there is equal and distributive justice, there is no poverty, there is no suffering. In the political field, our goals are democracy, distribution of power, equal distribution of power. You and I, we are free to give our own opinions. There are free elections without any harassment, without any news of shooting. There are any news of botching up elections, of EVM machines getting hampered with. There is individualism, there is tolerance of all religion, there is secularism, there is equality. There is a break with traditional customs and rituals, and achieving social status through individual merit, through individual potential rather than birth. That is, my birth will not determine my social status but my merit. But we have not achieved these goals. It cannot be said that the political elite can alone determine the nature and process of these goals. We cannot say that the political elite are responsible for the achievement of these goals. But there are many factors of various institutions in the society: the competence of mass of population, our heritage, our political stability, our political pattern, etc., etc. All these affect the development of a nation. Yet, however, political elite, this class, they are the planners and the decision makers, and they play a very significant role in the country's development. Nobody can deny that we have made progress in different fields, we as in our country, we as Indians, we as India. It may even be said that much of our development is due to the efforts of the activist elite that we had in the last few decades. Activists elite. But this is also a fact that if our country has yet reached only its halfway point, that is, we are only halfway towards our goals, it is because our political elite have proved to be a barrier in the process of modernization. The political elites are a hindrance to our advancement and to our society in several ways. They are discriminatory. They believe in kinship, as I said. So, if you are an elite of a social group and you have risen up to the political class of elites, that is, you are a major policy maker, you will never allow a person from a working class to rise from a working class or which is not in your favor. A working class person who does not belong to a religion, who does not accept your ideas of change, your own ideas of change, you are resistant. You as a political elite are resistant to that individual. You will not allow him to move up to your class. So they are hindrances. The political elite are hindrances or obstacles towards true unity among diversity, which our country presents, which India is known for, unity among diversity. So they are discriminatory. They are traditionalists. They belong in tradition. They believe in traditions, in customs, in religion, in rituals. They do not want to truly modernize themselves. They do not want to truly rationalize themselves. They cannot provide you with the reason for why they believe in certain aspects and they do not believe in certain others. They are not reasonable people. They have their vested individual and selfish interests in order to increase their power. They suffer from political rivalries. They suffer from corruption, and they have adversely affected the technological changes that would want to take place in our country. So can we as an average Indian be a beneficiary of programs and policies which are made by markets which are monopolized? Can a society be modernized by the elite whose programs are to appoint committees and commissions for suggesting, initiating, implementing efficient means and mechanisms for solving various socio-economic problems of the society? How can we progress as a society if there are groups or there are clusters of people appointed by the political elite who again continue their own ideas, their own concepts? They do not invite, they are not open to change. So if you are resistant to change, you are resistant to advancement, you are resistant to development, you are resistant towards a truly tolerant economy. You cannot be resistant to change if you want true advancement, if you want true development and progress. That is exactly what the role of the political elite are. They are influential, small group of people with concentrated power who believe in tradition, who believe in kinship, who believe that only their interests are good for the country. And since they have the money, since they have the power, since they are major policy makers, they can control the cycle with which an economy runs. No change is being injected, but only monopoly and bureaucracy is powering this cycle of economy. And for Gramsci, for Gramsci, the political elites, they are equivalent to the intellectuals of the ruling class. The ruling class being whichever social group which is dominant at any given period of time. So during Chaucer's time in the 15th century, it was feudalism. So the feudal lords were the dominant social group, and their intellectuals were the political elites. After feudalism came feudalism. Before feudalism there was monarchy, of course. After feudalism came capitalism. And these intellectuals or the political elites, they are also specialists. Specialists as in very easy meaning of the term. Specialist is a person who specializes in any particular activity, in any particular job or any particular function. Okay. So thus we have so many specialists in the medicinal line. So these political elites and intellectuals or intellectuals of the ruling class, they are specialists of one primitive activity which is adopted by a social type, which social type is also constantly changing. It is contextual. For this decade, it is the extreme right-wing capitalist ruling party that we have, and it is their ideology of nationalism which wants to make the country or break the country, whichever perspective you would believe in. I have no issues with that, but nonetheless, so today it is this type. A few years ago in our state level, it was the communist type, the social type of communism, and they had their own specialists of who were intellectuals, who were the political elites. So for Gramsci, the political elites are actually the intellectuals. Now it is the formation of particularly these people about whom we will be studying with our assignment together. And these intellectuals, they are specialists of a primitive activity. Why primitive? Because this activity is very old. This is not a new activity. It is adopted by a social type which is always becoming new. Always becoming new precisely because it is a social type. It will change according to the society, and the society never remains fixed. It constantly changes. It is always dynamic in the flux, and it is always contemporary. So that is it for the elite theory, and you can understand why I wanted to give a class in this for this particular theory, because it is very intricately related to the essay that we will be studying together. And I hope you have understood who the political elites are, who is comprised of in this particular social type, and how it is related to Gramsci. At least these portions should be clear to you. And of course, if you have any problems, you can revisit this particular video recording, or you can directly ask me any which way which is comfortable for you. So that is it for today, and thank you very much.